Welcome everyone, it's Shari Carroll for SimonsStamp.com, and today I'm going to show you how I've made this cherished mixed media project. The base for my project is the Tim Holtz vignette panel, and you can either decorate the inside or the outside. For today's project, I'm going to decorate the inside. I'll be using the Dina Wakley heavyweight watercolor paper, and this is 7.5 inches wide by 10 inches. So I've cut mine square to 7.5 by 7.5. I'll be stenciling onto my watercolor cardstock with Picket Fence Studios Gold Sparkle Glaze, and I'm using their Stencil, which is the Shadow of Leaves. This paper glaze is a little bit thinner than some of their other glazes, and this will bleed under the stencil just a little bit. Don't want a perfect stenciling, I want this to be loose and abstract. I've been really excited to try the new Tim Holtz Featherly dies, and I've chosen 3 that I'm going to be cutting from Tim Holtz Distress watercolor paper. The ink cubes I'm working with are ground espresso, spice marmalade, aged mahogany, and peacock feathers, and I'm using the Simons Stamp small blending brushes so that I can get some concentrated color. So I'm going to start this one off by adding some ground espresso to the side. And when I'm doing the ink blending, I start off fairly softly, and then as I go, I start adding more intense color. Next, I'm working in some peacock feathers and then also some of the aged mahogany, and I'm letting those colors overlap a little bit. So the aged mahogany is a really beautiful red. I don't know if you've tried it, but it is almost a pink, really dark tone, and it's really gorgeous, especially when it's mixed with these colors. Next, I'm adding a little bit of spice marmalade over, and this will lighten up the aged mahogany and give it a little bit more of a rusty colored look. Then I'll go back with some of the same colors and I'll start darkening in the areas and giving it more intense color. And once I have all my feathers colored, I'm going to spritz them with the sprayer and getting a little bit of control on the nozzle so I get some large drops of water. And next I'll put a paper towel over the top, and when I lift it I can see where the water has removed the color. I'm back to my background and I'm replacing the stencil. I did wash it off in between the gold, and what I want to do is to place it to where these leaves in the background will have a slightly different direction. And that is still a little bit tacky, so it's going to hold my stencil in place. And I'm adding a layer of the Arctic Fox paper glaze. This glaze has a little bit thicker consistency, so it will give me crisp results through the stencil. So now I have a nice glimmery gold in the back, and then the Arctic Fox, which also has a sparkle to it on top. I'll be adding some paper glaze to the tops of my feathers, and I want to block off so that I'm just going to add this to the top part of each feather. And I've chosen some Tim Holtz stencils that have a small area to work with, so I don't want it really open, I want really small areas. So I'm going to use this mesh and also the Arctic Fox paste right on the top. I don't need a lot, so it's kind of hard just to get just a little. But I'll go ahead and use this like a regular stencil and apply this with the palette knife, and I'll try to scrape off any of the excess. And when I remove the tape and the stencil, I'm left with a really nice texture at the top of my feather. I've done my other 2 feathers and I've used different stencils. So this is the autumn leaves with a really small dot stencil, and this is really pretty. It really goes well with that blue undertone. And for my last feather, I used a speckled stencil and the coffee beans paper glaze. My background is all dry, and I want to show you how nice and thick this cardstock is. It stays flat even with all that paste and moisture. Next, I've added a little bit of foam tape to the back of the feathers. I want these to sit up from the background just a little bit. If your adhesive is not sticking to your background, you can use a little bit of the Simons Stamp Craft Tacky Glue and use it on the bottom and also onto the foam tape. And then I placed my other feathers next to them. I don't know that I explained that I'm considering these my 2 boys and my husband. So these are my cherished 3. And of course I'll have to make one for Melody as well. I'm also adding a piece of mummy cloth to the bottom, and I'm just adding a line of glue thinner than the mummy cloth. Next, I'll just lay this on top of the glue. I don't want to press it down too hard, but I just want to make sure that I make contact with the glue. The glue will come through the cloth, and if you want to make sure that you have this all straight, you can use our Simon Says Stamp 6-inch T-square and make sure that you're lined up on your project. I gave my glue on the front a chance to dry a little bit, and now I'm just adding some to the back, and I'm wrapping that mummy cloth around and securing it. Next, I've die cut the Picket Fence Studios Cherished Word, and this is a slimline die, so it fits on your larger projects and cards. And I've cut that from Simon Says Stamp Dark Chocolate Cardstock. I've added some glue to the back, and I can just flip that over and add it to the front of my project. And finally, I'm adding a generous amount of glue to the back of the cardstock. And I really want to make sure that I get all the edges and the corners and a nice amount in the center. And since I'm working with wet glue, I want to make sure that I get it a little bit centered at first, but I will be able to move this around and adjust it if I need to before the glue dries. And here's how my project looks completed. I really love the natural tones, and it's kind of got that nice masculine feel. I do have all my supplies listed in the description box below in case you want to try one out for yourself, and also a link to our blog post for more information. I hope you've enjoyed my project, and as always, thanks so much for watching.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.